Our action research project was focused on the topic of Indigenous knowledge in our classrooms. We both initially shared having a common interest in ensuring acceptance and care within our classrooms. Having a safe space for students to explore and share their experiences and knowledge while being respected was a key area of focus for us both. Through discussion, we were able to reflect on our own elementary experiences, and we realized that Indigenous education is an important topic, but we both remember having an inadequate experience. Through interrogation, we decided that the cause of this problem is related to teachers not having the professional knowledge or resources to be confident in teaching this topic in an accurate way. Our goal is to give students the opportunity to understand and begin to appreciate Indigenous communities and their experiences. Because of these conversations, we agreed on a research question focused on incorporating Indigenous education into other curricular areas in effective ways. Our research question is, what are the most appropriate and effective ways to incorporate Indigenous ways of knowing and knowledge into our grade 6 social science classrooms? After reviewing various articles on Indigenous education, implementation, and resources, we distilled a few common themes that would shape the rest of our research study. The first theme focused on the importance of having Indigenous materials in the classroom, as they are the central aspect of inclusion of Indigenous knowledge and communities. Second, teachers need to build a relationship with their students so they not only know where their students are at academically, but also what the students need to be taught next and how to best scaffold their learning. Third, teaching Indigenous education across various curricular areas allows it to become more accessible and comfortable for students. The fourth theme was, before introducing any curricular material, it is important to foster a community of respect and trust so students feel safe to voice their opinions and thoughts. The fifth and final theme that we found is that it is important to not speak for Indigenous people or even appoint an Indigenous student as a spokesperson, but rather have students share their own experiences as individuals. Our intervention plan includes 3 different parts. First, we will consciously and effectively increase presence of Indigenous ways of knowing into student learning, both through the processes and instruction, as well as explicitly identifying these ways of knowing. Secondly, we are going to appropriately utilize materials created by Indigenous educational stakeholders to provide authenticity and value to the learning that students are doing. Thirdly, we are going to address biases and naive understandings of Indigenous groups and their roles and presence in society, both historically and currently. We chose to utilize KWL charts, student-teacher interviews, and student sample work as our forms of data. We chose to use a KWL chart as a diagnostic assessment because it would allow students to independently reflect on what they know about Indigenous ways of knowing, what they would like to know in the following lessons, and finally, what they learned the year before. After completing the KWL chart individually, we will have students get into small groups to share their charts with their peers, and in a different color add anything new to their chart after the group conferencing. We chose one-on-one student-teacher interviews as our second form of data to analyze because this allows the teacher-researcher to ask students about specific follow-up questions about what they know, what they don't know, and why they may have gaps in their knowledge. This form of qualitative data allows students to talk openly about why they answered questions as they did and may help identify how to best support students in their learning. This also allows for students and teachers to build a trusting relationship with each other. Finally, we decided student sample work will be used to augment our understanding of what students know and don't know. This will be ongoing and may be followed up with an interview. Student sample work and interview content will be recorded by the teacher in a tracking form to see the progress of our students.
Looking next to the demographic and participant base of our students. Because our action research is being based around a grade 6 social studies classroom, it only makes sense that our participant base is just that, grade 6 students. This can include males, females, a very large range of demographic influences. But ultimately it will be a grade 6 student base for our participants. Because we are working with students, it is important to note that there are some ethical considerations that need to be in place. For example, parent consent and information is very important to us and will be something that we will hope to communicate actively and effectively with parents about what is going on in our classroom before, during, and after our research. Along with that, we also hope to protect our student privacy by using pseudonyms whenever reporting or utilizing their work or involvement in our study. We also hope to be open and transparent with our students and participants, parents, as well as the participants themselves, by welcoming questions in class during discussions or outside of class on designated times if need be. Parents or students can always reach out that way as long as it's within an appropriate time. Looking now at how we are going to be analyzing the data we record from students as well as our own journaling. First of all, what kind of data will we be collecting? First would be a personal testimony from the students, including a KWL chart, or what I know, what I wonder, what I learned chart, which will be used as an initial standpoint for student knowledge, as well as a continual checkpoint for students throughout, as well as a final destination for them to record their learning, as well as their progress. Student work samples, so actual products as well as discussion and notes, will be recorded and collected throughout, cumulatively recorded as well as assessed by us as the researcher. This will allow us to see the physical changes as well as scaffolding of information and use of materials by our students. This process will also allow for real-time feedback on how materials and new understandings and ways of knowing are being used by our students and scaffolded into their own existing information and thought. Teacher journaling, so us as the researcher recording our observations and feedback of our pedagogy as well as student assessment and work, will be done throughout on a continuous basis. This allows us to reflect as well as plan ahead and ensure that we are following our progress as well as extending it via the new information. Now that you know each of the methods of data collection, this is the timeline in which we will be collecting as well as utilizing and assessing the data accordingly. Teacher journaling, as I mentioned, will go throughout, and it will be used to triangulate data from the other two sections, as well as create a kind of timeline, as well as check in as to where we are going and how it has been going for students as well as us when implementing the new information. The KWL chart will be used as an initial standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, as well as a progressive check with students as they go throughout, as they can fill in the W and the L chart as they go independently or at set intervals, depending on which pace we move at. This can be done at different speeds to meet our students' needs at the beginning, middle, and end, or closer to the end of our study. The monthly check-ins obviously will happen monthly, and they will be used to compare with the KWL chart as well as our notes on student assessment to see how they are doing and how they think they are doing, so we can best support our students as well as adjust our teaching and learning practices for them. Finally, the work samples, as mentioned previously, will be collected throughout as well as assessed finally at the end to see the progressions that students have as well as what areas they need to change or improve upon as we move forward or through different units in the social studies curriculum.